Okay, good morning students. Today we have a recorded class and hence today we will be doing the next part, that is the changes occurring during puberty, which we have already discussed. Okay, so there are many changes which occurs during puberty that we discussed in the last class, and the first important change is the body changes, which includes increase in height, which includes change in body shape and other voice organs and other sex organs in our body. So as a result, students, we have generally this kind of body changes in puberty. The second point is to discuss an increase in action of sweat and sebaceous glands. Means the sweat glands in our body, it also increases day by day as we gain puberty. The third point is increase in height. The most conspicuous change during puberty is the sudden increase in height, because when we grow we start to gain height, and then when we came to know that we start to grow height, then we come to know that we have attained puberty. So increase in height is one of the most important factors in puberty. That is one of the most decisive factors in puberty. The next character that we have is changes in body shape. Generally in girls, below the waist becomes wider. In boys, the muscles of the body grow, and prominently than in the girls. So boys have a broader shoulder and wider chest. Then we have voice change. Voice change is another most important property of puberty. At puberty, the voice box or the larynx, which is located here, the voice box or the larynx, you can see this part which is located here. It's sometimes this part, this is called the larynx. Sometimes what happens, this part sometimes it is protruding outside. Sometimes this part goes outside, so you can see that it is bulged outwards. So when it is bulged outwards, it feels that it is coming out of the organ. So in many lean and thin boys, we see this particle protruding outside. So that is called the Adam's apple, which I also discussed. I'll provide you one video on Adam's apple. In girls, the larynx is hardly visible. In girls, the larynx is not visible properly, but in boys, the larynx is visible. Then you have increased activity of sweat and sebaceous glands. We begin to sweat. Now also I'm sweating a lot. Means the sweat glands that try to develop one by one during puberty. So during puberty, the secretion of sweat glands and sebaceous glands, which oil glands, our skin starts to secrete the oil, it increases. Then we have development of other sex organs in our body. It is also a change in puberty where different sex organs start to develop. At puberty, the male sex organs include the penis and the testes that start to develop. The testis also begins to produce sperms. So sperm production happens when we attain puberty. And similarly, in girls, the ovaries begin to enlarge and they start to produce eggs. And the girls start their menstrual cycle during the puberty period. So these are some of the changes in puberty. What do you mean by secondary sexual characters? Next point. What do you mean by secondary sexual characters? Now, secondary sexual characters are used to distinguish a male from a female. Growth of facial hair, beard, mustache are the secondary sexual characters in male, means us. The beard growing, the hairs growing in our hand, the hairs growing, the beard, the mustache, these are the secondary sexual characters. And hair growth on arms, legs and public region, also some secondary sexual characters. But boys develop hair on their chest and girls develop their breasts as secondary sexual characters during adolescence period. So boys, they started to develop their chest, the broader chest, and girls, they started to develop their breasts and as secondary sexual characters during adolescence period. Hormones. What do you mean by hormones? How many types of hormones are there? So students, suddenly we start to feel warm, suddenly we start to feel cold, suddenly we start, become very anxiety, suddenly some stress comes to us. So these are all changes of hormones. These are all due to the change of hormones. Everything. So hormones are chemical substances or messengers that are secreted by glands. We have different sorts of glands. So hormones are those which are secreted by different kinds of glands. For example, we have the pituitary gland, we have the thyroid gland, we have the adrenal gland. These are the parts of the glands. I will also send you a video recording related to glands. The male hormone which is in our body, is called the testosterone. The testosterone is released by the testes and causes the changes in boys. So the hormone testosterone is produced in testes. In girls, the ovaries releases estrogen. In girls, the hormone estrogen is released which is responsible for the development of the breasts. And after a certain age, when the girls become pregnant after their certain period, then the breasts have some mammary glands, or the breasts have some milk glands in which the milk start to produce for the babies. So these are some of the secondary sexual characters, and these are controlled by different kinds of hormones. So different kinds of hormones, students, have different kind of role. For example, the thyroid gland secretes the thyroxine hormone, which is responsible for our thyroid. Adrenal gland does other works. Adrenaline hormone is there. Similarly, the male hormone is called testosterone, which is released by the testes. And in girls, ovaries releases the hormone estrogen, which causes the changes in breasts. Next, I told you as milk secreting glands, mammary glands. So milk secreting glands are called mammary glands, which develop inside the breast that produces milk. Secretion of hormones also helps the eggs to release from ovary inside the female and release the sperms from inside the male. So secretion of hormones helps us to release the eggs in the girls from the ovary, and secretion of different hormones helps us to produce the sperms and produces the sperms inside the testes of the male. So remember, students, in male we have the hormone called testosterone, and in female we have the hormone called ovaries. Which period is known as the reproduction phase in humans? Reproductive phase life in humans. Which period is the reproductive phase life in humans? So reproduction generally happens in male and female differently. So in reproduction, generally we know that the reproductive phase of life begins at the age of puberty. So when we attain puberty, we start to reproduce, and we are capable of reproduction. Either that is in sexual pleasure or in kind of other means also. So as because we develop the secondary sexual characters, so due to sexual attraction also, we start to develop different kind of reproductive nature. So what do you mean by occurrence of pregnancy and menstruation? This is a very important question, especially for girls. What is the importance of occurrence of pregnancy and menstruation? See the process. An ovum is released by the uterus of the ovary. Ovum means egg. Ovum is released by either of the ovaries. Ovum is released by either of the ovaries every 25 to 30 days. Means after an interval of 25 to 30 days, what happens? The ovary, it's started to produce ovum or eggs. So during this period, the wall of the uterus becomes thick. The uterus wall, which is present in the ladies, it becomes thick to receive the egg. So that if it becomes thick, it can receive the egg properly from that particular ovary. In case it is fertilized, suppose at that time you have some sexual attraction and the sperm goes inside it, and if it is fertilized, then the egg starts to develop. This results in pregnancy. If it is fertilized, that results in pregnancy. Means fertilization of the egg by the sperm, that results in pregnancy. If fertilization does not occur, then the released egg, suppose there is no sperm to fertilize. If fertilization does not occur, then the released egg and the thickened lining of the uterus along with its blood vessels. So the egg comes out along with the thickened lining of the released egg along with its blood vessels shed off. This causes the menstruation. So the blood vessels, they try to shed off along the thickening of the uterus. So as a result, during the menstruation period, girls, blood secretes out from their uterus. So this menstruation period, it stays in the body for around 4 to 5 days. And then again, after an interval of 28 to 30 days, the menstruation cycle again begins. So once again I repeat, an ovum is released by either of the ovaries every 28 to 30 days. During this period, the wall of the uterus becomes thick so as to receive the egg in case it is fertilized. This results in pregnancy. If fertilization does not occur, the released egg and the thickened lining of the uterus along with its blood vessels shed off. Means the thickened lining, the egg and the blood vessels, they shed off, causing the bleeding. And this particular property is called menstruation cycle. So notes I'll be giving in Google Classroom, don't worry. So please look at the video what I am explaining to you specifically. Next, what do you mean by menarche and menopause? We'll do till here. What do you mean by menarche and menopause related to menstrual cycle? The first menstrual cycle flow begins at puberty. The first flow of blood, menstrual cycle begins at puberty, and it is termed as menarche. At 45 to 50 years of age, the menstrual cycle stops. Stoppage of menstruation is termed as menopause. Means starting of the menstrual cycle is called menarche, and stopping of the menstrual cycle is called menopause. So initially, menstrual cycle may be irregular. Generally, initially the menstrual cycle is irregular. Sometimes it should happen in around 28 to 30 days, no. But sometimes it does not happen in 28 to 30 days. Sometimes it takes more time. Suppose sometimes some girls have periods or menstrual cycle after every 2 months, sometimes 4 months. So initially it's not regular. So starting of the menstrual cycle is called menarche, which begins at puberty, and at around 45 or 50 years, the menstrual cycle stops, and that is called menopause. So initially menstrual cycle may be irregular, it takes some time to become regular. What do you mean by menstrual cycle? As I already discussed, menstrual cycle is basically controlled by hormones which are in our body. Menstrual cycle are basically controlled by hormones which are present in our body. The cycle includes the maturation of the egg. The egg starts to mature, it release and thickening of the uterus wall. The egg starts to mature, the egg releases and thickening of the uterine, and the breakdown if pregnancy does not occur. So students, if pregnancy occurs, then there will be no menstrual cycle. There is also symptoms of pregnancy. But if pregnancy does not occur, then the flow of blood will be there, because the uterus, there is now no sperm to fertilize the egg inside the uterus. In case the egg is fertilized, it begins to divide and then gets embedded in the uterus for further development. So if the egg is fertilized, then it stays inside the uterus, then it starts to develop inside the uterus. But if the egg is not fertilized, then the egg sheds off along with the blood vessels, and hence the menstruation cycle occurs. So students, the next question we'll be discussing in the next class, that is Ravi's mother part. So today basically we do a revision of what we generally taught. Today we started with the changes occurring during puberty. Then we started in changes in body shape, voice change, increased activity of the sweat and sebaceous glands. Then we did development of different sex organs. Then we studied about the secondary sexual characters. So the secondary sexual characters in male, they differ from female. Male hair growth on arms, legs and pubic region, whereas boys develop hairs on the chest and girls started to develop their breast. What do you mean by hormones? As I already told, hormones are chemical substances which are secreted by the glands, and hormones are generally secreted by endocrine glands. Remember, there are some endocrine glands: pituitary gland, thyroid gland, which is responsible for thyroxine, adrenal gland, which is responsible for adrenaline, and we have testosterone, which is secreted in male by the gland testis, and estrogen, which is secreted in women by the ovaries. So testosterone is responsible for the production of sperms, and ovaries is responsible for the production of ovum or egg. Then we have milk secreting glands, mammary glands, which develop inside the breast and produces milk. Which period is known as the reproductive phase? So in reproductive phase begins at puberty, that is 10 to 12 years, and ends with the age of 45 to 50 years. So it means after 50 years, you are no longer capable of reproduction. You cannot reproduce new babies. What do you mean by occurrence of pregnancy menstruation? As I already told, after every 28 days, an egg is released. If the egg gets fertilized, it remains in the uterus and it starts to develop, that is pregnancy. If the egg is not fertilized, then it starts to shed off along with the thick lining of the uterus, and as a result, the blood vessels also shed off. So those blood goes out through the vagina, and then the girls have the menstrual cycle. Then we discussed about menarche and menopause. So the first menstrual cycle flow begins at puberty, which is termed as menarche, and the menstrual cycle, when it stops, say around 45 to 50 years it stops, it is termed as menopause. So initially menstrual cycle is not regular, but finally it becomes regular. Then what do you mean by menstrual cycle? Menstrual cycle is controlled by hormones, as we already know. The cycle includes the maturation of the egg. It releases the egg, and then the uterus gets thickened to receive the egg, and the egg starts to break down if it is not fertilized. But if it is fertilized, it remains in the uterus and it goes for further development. So today we discussed about secondary sexual characters, about puberty, about menstrual cycle, about menarche, about menopause, and what is the condition of pregnancy and what is the condition of menstrual cycle. So with this, students, I end here in the recorded class. In the next class, that is tomorrow, Friday, we will discuss the next part, Ravi's question which was left, and along with that, we'll discuss the other parts. So please write down these notes. I'll be scheduling in the Google Classroom. Please go through these notes and study properly, as because your exams are coming. I will discuss the project part also in the live class in the next class. Till then, thank you very much. Stay safe, stay healthy, and take good care of yourself. Thank you.